what is the personal data? Well, personal data is actually any information that relates to an individual who can be directly or indirectly identified. Names and email addresses are obviously personal data, as we know. Location information, ethnicity, gender, biometric data, religious beliefs, web cookies, and political opinions can also be personal data as well. Okay, so that was actually the definition by the personal data. Now, how to ensure compliance with the GDPR? Well, in order to ensure the compliance with the GDPR, we actually need to walk through the key regulatory points of the GDPR, which are accountability, data security, data protections, processing data, consent, privacy rights, and data protection officers. We will see each of these particular regulatory points just shortly. We will start with the accountability. Well, the GDPR says that the data controllers have to be able to demonstrate that they are actually the GDPR compliant. And this isn't something that you can do after the fact, that if you think you are compliant with the GDPR but can't show how, then you're not GDPR compliant. Among the ways that you can do that is designate data protection responsibilities to your team, maintain detailed documentation of the data you're actually collecting. When we say you, we're actually referring to your institutions, to your company, to your business, and how it is used, where it is stored, which employee it is responsible for it, and etc. Train the staff and implement technical and organizational security measures. Have data processing agreement contracts in place with third parties. You actually contract to process data for you, and appoint a data protection officer that we're going to look at shortly in this key regulatory of the GDPR. Even the that includes the data protection officer as well. Okay, so that was actually accountability. Now we are at the data security, and actually your company, your business, your institution is required to handle data securely by implementing the appropriate technical and organizational measures. With the technical and organizational measures, would actually mean anything from requiring your employees to use two-factor authentication on accounts where personal data are stored, to contracting with cloud providers that are actually using end-to-end encryption. Organizational measures are things like staff trainings, adding a data privacy policy to your employee handbook, or limiting access to personal data to only those employees in your organizations who are actually need that one. Okay, but if it happens that you are actually having a data breach, then according to the GDPR regulation or standard, your company, your institution, your business has 72 hours to tell the data subjects or face penalties. And we've seen earlier regarding actually what are the penalties according to the GDPR, or if not actually being responsible according to the GDPR standard. Okay, that was data security. Data protection, what we have in the data protection, okay? Well, from now on, when we actually, we always refer to the company, institution, the organization that has already implemented the GDPR. Everything that you actually do in your organization must, by design and by default, consider data protection. Practically speaking, this means you must consider the data protection principles in the design of any new product or activity. Suppose, for example, you're launching a new application for your company. You have to think about what personal data that application could possibly collect from users. Then consider ways to minimize the amount of data and how you will secure it with the latest technology. So all these considerations we need to bear in mind within our organization, within our company institutions, in terms of data protection, or to fulfill the criteria of data protection, or the regulatory of the data protection as set by the GDPR. Okay, moving forward, processing data. Okay, what we have with the processing data. Okay, in terms of the processing data, don't even think about touching somebody's personal data. Is actually something that the GDPR is trying to make aware companies, institutions, organizations that are actually involved involved with the GDPR standard. Okay, so don't collect it, don't store it, don't sell it to advertisers unless you can justify it with one of the following. And the following are that the data subject gave you specific unambiguous consent to process the data. Processing is necessary to execute or to prepare to enter into a contract to which the data subject is a party. You need to process it to comply with the legal obligations of yours. You need to process the data to save somebody's life. Processing is necessary to perform a task in the public interest or to carry out some official function, or your company, your institutions, or your organizations has a legitimate interest to process someone's personal data. So all of these aspects are the way that you can actually can collect, can store it, or can sell it to advertisers if you actually use all of what we listed in a way to justify these particular activities. Okay, so that was regarding to the processing data. Okay, what about the concept, which actually is one of the among the important key regulatories of the GDPR? Okay, actually there are strict new rules about what constitutes consent from a data subject to process their information. So the consent must be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous. A request for consent must be clearly distinguishable from the other matters and presented in clear and plain language. Data subjects can withdraw previously given consent whenever they want, and you have to honor their decision. Children under 13 can only give consent with permission from their parents, and you need to keep documentary evidence of consent. So all these considerations should be taken into account as said actually by the GDPR, the companies that actually are involved in collecting, in processing the personal data. Okay, moving forward, privacy rights, what we have in the privacy rights. You are a data controller or a data processor. So your company, your institution, your business is actually a data controller or a data processor. But as a person who uses the internet, you're also a data subject. Okay, then the GDPR recognizes a litany of new privacy rights of data subjects which aim to give individuals more control over the data they loan to organizations. As an organization, it is important to understand these rights in order to ensure that your company, your institution, or your organization is actually GDPR compliant. Okay, so some of them some of these important things that actually considerations to ensure that your GDPR your organization is actually GDPR compliant are the right to be informed, the right of access, the right to the right to rectification, the right to erasure, the right to restrict processing, the right to data portability, the right to object, the rights in relation to automated decision making and profiling. Okay, that was actually regarding the privacy rights. And here is the talking or the discussion regarding the data protection officers. Okay, the one that we've said earlier. Okay, contrary to popular belief, not every data controller or processor needs to appoint a data protection officer, or shortly known as the DPO. There are three conditions under which your institution, your organization, your company is required to appoint a DPO or data protection officer. Number one says that your company, your organization, your institution is a public authority other than a court acting in judicial capacity. Your court